Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Welcome to the Connecting with Coincidence radio show with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, bringing together the world's synchronicity experts to help you use meaningful coincidences to develop spiritually, psychologically, and practically. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence into your web browser to find the book, website, Psychology Today blog, YouTube channel, and Facebook page. And now, here is the host of the Connecting with Coincidence radio show, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD.
Welcome to CC with BB. Yes, this is Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. Glad to be with you. And I'm going to start off with a coincidence that I found on Facebook with a woman who's written a very interesting book on synchronicity and coincidence. And she's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. And she writes, last Sunday morning, a friend of mine posted on Facebook that his mother had been missing since the previous afternoon. She is now safe at home. But the strange thing is that less than 15 minutes after discovering that my friend's mother was missing, I got a phone call from my uncle who knew nothing about this and doesn't use Facebook. My uncle wanted to know if I knew where my mother was because she wasn't responding to his texts. And he was worried that something was wrong with her. 2 missing mothers in the space of 15 minutes. Well, our guest today is Tito Abao, who has over 50 years of experience in spiritual work and is the author of Parallel Lives of Tito Abao and Nero. In the early 1960s, Tito became an initiate in a Christian yoga sect under one of the first American realized beings, Sri Subramuniya. After several years in the order, he went on to become an architectural draftsman until resuming his quest for spiritual liberation after a near-death experience in 2007. Tito completed the majority of his metaphysical training at the Monroe Institute, a school dedicated to heightened consciousness, located in Faber, Virginia. The author's lifelong interaction with the paranormal, as well as his out-of-body experiences and recurrent past life dreams and memories, have fueled his desire to produce a book that recounts his spiritual journey. Tito, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. And what do you think of that coincidence with the two lost mothers?
Well, and this is how I look at it from the point of view of the law of attraction. And coincidences, from my point of view, are like champagne bubbles that keep arising in a bottle of champagne. Because when the whole of the universe is actually a functioning organism, and it's all based on attractions, your desires, and how you move through life, and it's always attracting to you the thing that's most prominent in your mind. Now, the way I look at coincidences as opposed to synchronicity is that the coincidences are indicators that the mind is working on a certain problem. Now, as a conscious human being who has a very specific point of view, you might not be aware that the subconscious is also working on problems and trying to solve things, but you're not aware of it. And the coincidences are like those bubbles of information coming that, hey, I'm working on this. But you, in your conscious mind, you may not necessarily realize what the subconscious is doing. But in the case of the story you just told, they knew what they were trying to do, and they were aware of it, so they became aware of the coincidence.
I really don't
understand. That's my point of view. My point of view. I
really don't understand what you've just said. Could you try to clarify that, please?
Yeah, well, it's the whole of our existence as a psychological individual is the law of attraction. You're always...
So what is the law of attraction, Tito?
Well, the law of attraction is when you want something, for example. Say you want a bottle of beer.
So are you saying this woman wanted to have her mother be disappeared or not knowing where she was?
No, it was in her mind to find out.
Well,
so the law of attraction is bringing in all the elements to answer the question.
Well, she heard about the other woman before she found out about her uncle worried about her mother. So she wasn't worried about her mother. She was just...
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that is very difficult to explain because the vastness of consciousness is focused through our point of view.
Yeah, it certainly is. We're all individuals,
right?
And you have you have a unique place to stand. And let's go on with this because I think we've perhaps run as far as we can go with this one. But you think you're the reincarnation of Emperor Nero.
Right. And
why don't you tell us about that, please?
Okay. Essentially, what happened was how I found out about it is I was in a biofeedback training thing back in the 60s. You know, in the 60s, self-improvement was a big thing, and biofeedback came in, and I decided to follow it through. So I was sitting in a session, and just out of the blue, out of nowhere, my arm shot out, and I said, "Hail Caesar." And that was a complicated situation because the therapist thought I said Heil Hitler. And I said, no, I was Nero. But it just came out as a response to being in the biofeedback paradigm in which you start trying to contact your subconscious strengths and looking for ways to get deeper in a meditative state. And that just kind of popped out. But at that particular time, I was not able to do anything with it. She was surprised, and she didn't try to invalidate me or anything like that. But we couldn't do anything about it because there was no technology, no relationship to the system that they were using that had anything that connected to reincarnation. As a matter of fact, we didn't even think of it as reincarnation at the time. So as time went by, I started having all these various experiences that were actually related to my between life agreements. And
but related to what?
My between life agreements.
But
I had two.
What is a between life agreement, Tito?
Okay, a between life agreement is something that you enter into in what I call the causal plane. I don't know whether people are really understanding these terms. So
I don't want to. I think some of what you're talking about is really difficult to understand. I mean,
right.
There's no question that you strongly believe, almost know what you're telling me is true.
Right.
But I've read your articles in the Echo World, and I ran across some of the same problems. You make a lot of statements that have a lot of what I call air in them, because I don't understand the rest of what you seem to understand. It doesn't come through in the words you're speaking now. It doesn't come through in the words that you're writing. So we have to skip past this this agreement between what'd you call it? Inter something.
Well, between life agreements are entered into in the causal plane before you enter the physical universe.
So what is the causal plane?
Well, there's in the technology that I'm talking about. There's three planes. The physical plane, which we're in now, you and I are in it right now. Then there's a level above this, which is called the astral plane. And then there's a level above that, which is causal. Now, the causal plane is just ideas. And to progress through the 12-dimensional paradigm of the universe, you decide that you're going to come into the physical universe. But you have to have a particular goal. The physical universe is a place where specific things happen in specific lines. In other words, an experience has to be part of an agreement of the overall game that we're playing. And it turns out that...
And when you say game we're playing, it's an interesting use of terms. What do you mean by game we're playing?
Well, essentially, we're actually in a game paradigm. We want to have experiences. And I can give you a case history of that kind of explains it in a precise way. There was a gentleman who was having difficulty moving up in the corporate world. He couldn't understand why, so he went to a regression therapist. And what he found out is that he had a between life agreement in which he wanted to experience leading men to their deaths in an ambush. So what happened was Source. Now I'm using the words Source as God, but I think of it as Source because it has a more powerful connotation.
Yeah, a lot of people use that word. Yeah.
Okay, good. As long as people understand that Source and God are interchangeable.
Now we're coming to the end of this segment, and we can leave it at here's a guy that had an interlife agreement that he wanted to lead a bunch of men to their deaths in an avalanche.
In an ambush.
In an ambush.
Right.
That's what he wanted to be able to do.
That was his between life need or desire.
Okay.
Source made it possible.
And Source made. We're talking with Tito Abao, and we're talking about eventually getting to his idea of his being a reincarnation of Nero. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host on the X Zone Broadcast Network.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome back to CC with BB. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. We're talking to Tito Abao. Tito, you were telling us in the last segment about a guy who made an interlife agreement with Source behind him in some form to lead a bunch of men to their deaths in an ambush. Right. Why would somebody want to? Oh! I know. It's because he wanted to have that experience. Is that the idea?
Right. That's what the whole universe is about.
So this is like Westworld, that TV series where people walked into the Westworld to have experiences.
Exactly. This is what the universe is all about, and it's very hard for us to understand it because the whole point is that you have to enter not knowing. Because the minute you understand that you're in a dream and you're playing a game, you're no longer able to put in an Oscar-winning performance. It just becomes a kind of like a joke to you.
You got to pretend that it's real.
Yeah, but it's not pretending.
You got to believe it. It's
that's
real.
Why in this, when you come into the physical universe, you don't have any memory of anything from the past.
Yeah. So this guy went to
as you unfold in your life.
So this guy went to a past life regression, and he found out that he was trying to do this ambush.
Yeah, and that's why he wasn't progressing in this life, because he would encounter the same postulate, and what it would do, it would prevent him from climbing every time he went for a promotion, he'd do something that would not allow the promotion to take place. And it was based on this particular incident in the past.
Now, the incident in the past being what?
Where he had this desire to, because it was a negative desire. And what he's trying to do in something in this life was something positive. So once he contacted this past life and understood that what he was doing, he was able to, it changes on its own. Because the way regression and the kind of work that I'm doing is, see, when you look at something, it begins to evaporate. The universe is very fragile, and
wait, just wait a minute. I thought you said he had an interlife agreement, and now you're talking about something that happened in a life of his.
Yeah, and it was interfering with this life because this life had an entirely different projection.
In one previous life versus interlife agreement, I don't get the distinction.
The problem that you have is that from lifetime to lifetime, you're always the summation of everything you have ever been. And unless you resolve all these issues as you go forward, that's the whole point of living in the physical universe is dissolving all these issues. And what he did in doing this regression, he found out what the barrier was, what the block was.
Okay, I think we can do this one. I really don't understand some of what you're saying here. I really don't. With interlife versus a past life versus agreement versus mistake versus something. But I want to go back to this idea that you are the reincarnation with the Emperor Nero. Could you tell us? Could you tell us your evidence for that, please? You can tell us some of the stories, but I really want to know how you know that.
Okay, when I went to the I had a near-death experience in which I came under guidance. And when I came under guidance, I gravitated to the Monroe Institute. Now this, remember the earlier incident I had of knowing that I was Nero was in the 60s. Now, jumping forward to the 80s, when I went to the Monroe Institute, this popped up in the Monroe work, and I started remembering the lifetime, and I started explaining it to people because the way the Monroe Institute works is you go through the various hypnotic
stages,
episodes, and then after you have an episode which lasts for an hour, you go down to a general group meeting, and then you talk about what happened. Uh-huh. And that's what I started remembering all these details.
Like what?
Well, the fact that the primary reason I was in this lifetime is because I had my mother executed as Nero for sedition. And coming forward in time to repair that karmic relationship, my mother was very afraid of going into a home. And she made me promise that I would take care of her until she died.
Was this you talking about you as Nero?
No, me as Tito Abao paying off the debt of having her executed in 68 AD. All right. In this life, I was paying off that debt by giving her relief from her fear of going into a home. And I became her full-time caregiver. And the whole life was built around getting to that point. In this lifetime, I was never able to establish any financial security. Although I never starved, I was never necessarily out of a job. I couldn't build up any resources. So, but I realized as I began to understand what was going on, Source was making sure that I would not slough off the job of actually being a hands-on caregiver by having, I never was able to have a wife who would have had something to say about me taking care of my mother, And the whole point was that I had no encumbrances. I could do this. And the interesting thing about Source is that it made sure my mother had enough money, because when I was taking care of her, I managed her estate, and I built it up to $1.7 million.
Very good.
And I had some magical strikes. I made $250,000 in 1 hour on the stock market in manipulating options. But the second part of the agreement was that as Nero in Rome, I had extorted money from lower level nobles to build this huge palace. So in this lifetime, the second part of my between life agreement was to be completely wiped out by the Roman Catholic Church, because all those people who were functioning and taking my fortune were Romans that I knew at that time. So you're always encountering all the same people. As you go through, spin through, but this is a lot more complicated than I'm able to talk to in a few minutes, because we're talking about.
We have to do an interview, and I can understand it being complicated, but this
because
it's a great story you're telling us, and that somehow the Romans were present here. And who were the Romans present here?
Well, the same Roman people I extorted in 68 AD extorted me in 1990.
The Catholic Church?
So the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, completely wiped out my inheritance. And that, of course, is but that was part of the agreement. As you sow, so shall you reap. This is the law. And I'm paying back, and I already paid it because when I completed both between life agreements, I died. That was my near-death experience. But for some reason, Source said in that as I was dying, I knew I was dying, and it felt great, and I was ready to go. But the voice said to me, "Please don't die." And that's when I answered I obeyed the rule.
Is that when you came back to take care of your mother? Or
no. This is all after the between life agreement was satisfied. Because immediately after you satisfy a between life agreement, you usually die. And so because there's nothing else to do. The whole program for this life is completed.
So why'd you come back?
I tell you, I didn't actually know at the time, but when I was dying and leaving my body, the voice said, "Please don't die." And obviously I'm here, right? So,
well, let's go.
But that's when I came under guidance, and
I want to hear more about that part after your near-death experience. But you satisfied the crimes you committed as Emperor Nero.
Right. I paid back the causal relationship between cause and effect in that situation. 68 AD, I had my mother executed, and I extorted money out of a low-level...
we got that.
No, I paid that off.
I understand that. But and you did the right thing by your mother.
Well, it's not the right thing. I satisfied the conditions of the law of cause and effect. For every action,
in my view, you did the right thing for your mother. I mean, I'm just an ordinary
but
guy
it was a karmic relationship. I had her executed in 68 AD, and then I repaid that.
Is it possible that for you to accept that maybe I have a different view of what you're describing?
No, I understand that, and I completely understand that people don't really get what I'm talking about. But I can. The only thing I can do is say, well, this is the way my life worked.
I think completely is not enough. I think it's really hard to understand what you're talking about.
Well, but the thing is, you're also living it the same way. You just don't know it.
And I don't know it, and you know it, and that's.
Yeah, but I didn't know it until.
But you know that about me. You know that about me, and I think we might want to get to that. But we're coming to the end of this segment. I want to continue with the Nero part of this. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and we're talking with Tito Abao, who believes that he was the Emperor Nero.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. to get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hyde's life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Welcome back to CC with BB. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. Connecting with Coincidence, we're talking to Tito Abao. Tito, one of the common problems with reincarnation discussions is people who come forward and say they are a famous person. There are a lot of people who think they were maybe Mark Antony or Cleopatra. And not everybody could have been those people in the past. And your claim that you were and the Emperor Nero falls into a category of questionable claims because so many people do that. There are lots of other people who have lived in the past who are not claimed. Couldn't you have been a peasant? Couldn't you have been one of those Romans? Couldn't you have been just an ordinary person in the kingdom or in the emperor's area? What makes you so sure that you, Tito Abao, was the Emperor Nero?
Okay, essentially, I experienced it. When I went to the Monroe Institute and we went through their focus program, I got into the storyline, and I saw it all happen. And this is why I recommend regression therapy to people, because you can't actually understand reincarnation as an intellectual concept. It doesn't work because it's just arguments. But if you get regressed...
I know many people who describe regression and have a regression experience. I have a friend of mine who does hypnotic regression with people, and he's a really good guy, and he's a good clinician. He doesn't run across people who say they were famous people. That doesn't happen. You have a unique story that you, Tito Abao, were the Emperor Nero because you had an experience that got you back into those times, and that it seemed very real to you. And so that makes you know in your own mind that you were the Emperor Nero, but you need to be able to substantiate that much better than anyone who goes back and has an experience of being someone who's lesser well known than the Emperor Nero. So I want you to tell me in a way that maybe we could understand that you were the Emperor Nero. Please give good evidence for that.
Well, the two incidents that were part of my between life agreements have the parallel relationships to what happened in that time. Because the law of attraction, as I said before, or not the law of attraction, but the law of cause and effect is that as ye sow, so shall you reap. Now, as I always told people, I can't intellectually support this. The only way that you can find out if any of this is possible is by getting regressed.
Well, Tito,
Tito,
excuse me, but not everyone goes around saying I was the Emperor Nero. Not everyone writes a book.
Yeah, but I can't prove it.
But you're writing you can't prove it. So
right, I'm trying to show that there's these parallel events that happened in 68 AD that's being resolved in 1980.
That's not enough of evidence.
Well, I understand that. I understand that.
So why do you go around saying something that is so hard to substantiate?
Because it's the story that I have as part of my life issues. It solved a whole bunch of problems for me.
Oh, I believe that. And I know that you're saying, and I've in many ways that regression is a way to solve current life problems. And right. I want to go to that. But you wrote something that says my name at birth is this in this life was Tito Abao. Note the 4 letters in both names, the first and the last. Note both names end in the letter O. Does it have a relationship to Nero?
Right. Yeah, at all. Yeah.
Tito, that is such a stretch. It's called apophenia. It's looking for patterns that are not there. Just because your name ends with two O's and Nero's does is nothing of proof. It's not evidence unless you want it to be true.
I understand what you're saying. Can I
Please do.
Answer this? Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And that's why I tell people, unless you get regressed and find out you lived before and that you had another life and that you actually never died, you're the only one that can know this. And you don't have to take reincarnation on faith, but it can't be proven intellectually. It's not possible.
Then why do you make statements like this, Tito?
Because I'm writing the book from my point of view. This is what I found out to be true for me.
In just what I wrote to you, it says note the 4 letters in both names. When you say note, you were referring to the reader. And in saying note, it said, I think. It's nothing like I think these 4 letters mean this. It's saying note to the reader, both names end in the letter 0. You are trying to convince the reader that there is truth to this. If you would say, I think this is the way it is, that would be more truthful.
Yeah, well, that's a matter of semantics because I'm not necessarily. I follow your point of view, and I'd probably use it then in the future. But I was going from my point of view.
And your point of view is
because I know it, I believe it.
But Tito, these are words you have written, and semantics is very important. For example, when you use the term source, you might mean God, but you are clear that it means source because it has a different meaning to you. That's semantics. So you cannot say to me that I use semantics on God and source, and I don't use semantics when I note the 4 letters in both names. That is being unfair to anyone trying to talk with you. That is almost deception. You think the 4 letters are indicators, and that's all you can say, and I would appreciate it if that's all you do.
Well,
But you are doing more than that. You're saying, learn from me because I was the Emperor Nero. Now, there's a key question in all this that the Emperor Nero is very well known for, having fiddled while Rome burned. What is your analogy of that in your current life, Tito?
Okay, so I did not see that incident. And we now know that there were no fiddles in Rome at that time because the fiddle wasn't invented until sometime in the 16th century. So that story is just a story, an allegory. It could be that he had a lyre, the instrument of the time. That was the instrument of the time. It wasn't, and I don't think the term would be fiddling. I think it would be playing a lute or a lyre.
Well,
but I don't have. See, you don't see these things like a movie. You see them in pieces that help you solve certain issues that are happening. Like I told you about the guy who was trying to progress in the corporate world, but he had this barrier that was connected to failure. Because what he wanted to do was to have this experience of leading men to their deaths in an ambush. That is a failure postulate. That is not a success postulate. And he was carrying this down through the centuries. And every time he got into a lifetime and where he was trying to progress in a corporate situation, corporations are more recent. he would run against this particular postulate. And that thing was blocking his.
Tito, may I say something?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm a psychotherapist, and as a psychotherapist, I might have been able to help this corporate man to realize he was on a failure pattern without going back into a regression. There are many ways that people make changes like that. Is that possible for you to consider, that there are other ways that people change besides past life regression?
Well, I wouldn't even begin to try to argue against that. Everybody has their own path. This is the path I was following, and the book I wrote was describing how I solved certain issues in my life. I recognized where they came from and how they came about. And the book is only designed to show people that their past lives affect their current life. Now, whether you decide to follow up on finding out how this works is something else. I just wrote the book.
The evidence for that you go back to past lives to help yourself in the present comes from your personal experience. Is that correct?
Right. Because
you're asking people to take your personal experience, your story, and generalize to their lives so that they can better their lives by following what you did.
Essentially, I'm recommending regression therapy to find out how the present is being affected by the past.
And that's based on your personal experience.
Yeah, right. That's all this is. It's just what to me, and I'm explaining it how it happened and the way it evolved.
Okay. We're going to have one more segment left, and we'll get more into this. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. We're talking with Tito Abao, who believes he was the Emperor Nero.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Christopher Fulton is a survivor of the national security state. All he wanted to do was preserve history when he acquired a Cartier watch from the estate of President Kennedy's personal secretary. But that simple act set off a terrible chain reaction. He was pursued by the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI, thrust into the middle of the U.S. government's Assassination Records Review Board, even monitored and pursued by the Russian government. All because that Cartier watch was the missing link of evidence, a timepiece worn by JFK that fateful day in Dallas, a link resulting in Christopher being incarcerated and attacked for 9 years because he opened a hidden chapter in history. The intriguing journey outlined fully in Christopher Fulton's memoir, The Inheritance, is available now through TrineDay.com or Amazon.com. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination by Christopher and Michelle Fulton is a must-read, an incredible tale of how easily our own government can overrule justice. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination.
Well, welcome back to CC with BB. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and we're talking with Tito Abao, a man who recognizes in himself the value of past life regression, and I know other people who have found great value in that as well. And what I have been concerned about, and we can leave alone for now, is that his claim that he was the Emperor Nero, and that's in the that has to do with the claim of lots of other people who think they were someone famous. But I think we have to leave that one alone for now and just go on with some other questions that I have for Tito. Tito, and you wrote an article in Echo World, actually two of them, and I want to ask you about this precise mathematical relationships that is involved with the cause and effect and the cause and effect matrix. What are these precise mathematical relationships that interact in a cause and effect matrix, please?
Okay, let me give you the idea that I created. This is what I created. Consciousness is a constant. It is self-perpetuating, constantly reincarnating itself in mathematically precise storylines built. This phone keeps going off. Storylines built from between life agreements of Googleplexes, of unique finite egos. Reincarnation is the rule, not the exception. And source, see, as a conscious ego, you have a very limited window of observation. But consciousness itself encompasses the whole of creation. And that's what's running this whole game that we're playing. And that's the only way I can explain it, because I don't. That's the postulate I developed.
Okay, and that's your postulate that you developed. One of the things that I could ask you, you mentioned, was how does the name Tito or Titus and Abao relate to the Cain and Abel biblical story?
Right. The thing is that the universe is entirely integrated, and I think it might be instructive for people to look at the Rubik's Cube, because all is one, all is consciousness. And when you look at the Rubik's Cube, you see that there's about 7 different colors. Now, when you start moving it around, you start putting the colors in different relationships to each other. And that's kind of what's happening in the universe as we know it. Now, my name, Tito, is the Spanish derivative of Titus. Now, after Nero committed suicide, they had 4 emperors in 1 year. And the final emperor was Vespasian. His son was named Titus. And he was Vespasian survived, and his dynasty was perpetuated by Titus. Now, I see this from my point of view. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, because it's impossible to prove. But it helped me move forward.
Some stories are more believable than others, Tito.
Well, but the point is that I found it useful to myself.
There's one of the most compelling things about you, as I listen to you, is how so absolutely certain you are about what you know. I rarely run across people who are so believing in their own ideas as you do. And
yeah, but I experienced it. I'm trying to explain that I experienced this stuff, and experience is the most primary thing that can happen for you. I mean, my life is unfolding.
Tito, please. We interpret our experiences through words. We talked about the way we use words. You accuse me of semantic, of talking about semantics with you. You are using semantics. You are using the English language with a forcefulness and a certainty that I rarely hear from people, based on your interpretation of your own experiences. They don't make a lot of sense to me, Tito. They don't make a lot of sense. And that's where I'm trying to be able to figure out what you mean, because I think you probably have something there. There's some resonating ideas that I've heard from other people and can suggest to myself, but others of it is really hard to digest and get. So I'll move away from the Cain and Abel story and ask another question. How many different kinds of coincidences are there, Tito?
Well, I don't have a lot of information about that. All I can tell you is that coincidence and synchronicity are two different things.
Yeah, please explain the difference.
Okay. Coincidence is like the bubbles in a bottle of champagne.
As you said, yes.
Yeah. Now, synchronicity is what we're talking about in my own particular story here, because there's a synchronicity between the fact that I was born with the name, instead of using Tito, I use Titus. And he was the last permanent emperor in that particular paradigm, in that particular situation. So it was foreshadowing my life, because I was unfolding through this at the basis to discover this eventually. I mean, obviously, when I had because I had an opportunity to become the son of my mother's third husband, because he wanted to adopt me, but for some reason, it would have had a lot of financial and relational positives for me if I had accepted that, because it showed that he loved me. But I was very attached to this name for some reason. I didn't know it at the time. It took almost 40 years to figure this out. You know, I didn't know why I wanted to stay Tito Abao instead of being his son and changing my name.
Well, and then you found out.
Yeah, but 50 years later, after all of this took place, because none of this would have happened had I done it that way. Yeah. Because I would have been the sole and only heir of the estate.
And then
because I would have been his son.
I congratulate you on finding your way and finding the place that you want to be in your life. And as we get to the end of our show here, I'm going to ask you another question that I'm a little puzzled by. It doesn't have to do directly with you, but it has to do with somebody who's absolutely certain he's right. And I just want to know how you would address this person. This is a story of something happened recently in Alabama where an anti-abortion protester was yelling at a woman going in for an abortion. And the anti-abortion protester yelled, quote, "God knows your baby's name." So here's a man who was certain that God knew the baby's name. How would you address this man if he was willing to talk with you?
Well, if he was willing to talk with me, I probably would say, where did that come from? And I'd like to have him explain how he knows that. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that, and maybe some kind of a revelation would occur, because, but this is a question that I really have to think about, because it just comes out of the blue. But for me, I mean, I have no real answer to it other than the fact that that's his reality. So I think I'm talking about realities, and each individual is a station of reality for them. I'm just putting out my story, and if people can use it, wonderful. If not, then it's just another story. But can I I don't know if I have enough time to...
You do. For what? For what would you like
Well, I
to
wanted to explain the difference between what I'm talking about and trying to prove things and Einstein's view of relativity. I think it took about 20 years to prove it. But what his theory said was that space bends light. Now, you had to accept that on faith at the time. But it was provable. And it was proved, I think, in 1920 and 1928, because they set up the astrological observation because they knew where this star was going to be behind the moon.
And we don't have to go into it, but yeah, it took a couple of times to be able to show that during a solar eclipse, light was bent because they could take a photograph of it because the sun was in front of the moon was in front of the sun.
That was proof positive.
Yes.
But in the work that I'm working with, the only way you can prove it to yourself is to find out if you lived before and then work out these various karmic relationships. Because
we have one more comment. Are you familiar with the work of Jim Tucker here at the University of Virginia?
No, I'm not. I don't know the name.
It's impossible then for us to really have any kind of meaningful discussion about this because he's written two books on research and reincarnation. And he's been able to show that children are able to describe past lives and going back into those past lives and being able to find the people the child was talking about. And in talking with Jim Tucker, just because the kid says something like that, it doesn't mean that it's true, because there's another explanation. The other explanation is there's information around us in what I call the psychosphere, or other people have other names for it, where that information can be gotten. And it's not just, doesn't mean it's yours. It means that you tuned into it. And I suggest you, before you talk any more about reincarnation, you look at Jim Tucker's books. It might help you understand your own experience and be able to get you a wider understanding of what reincarnation research looks like. So I thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure talking with you. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and our guest is Tito Abao.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie, natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now to receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.